G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and Happy New Year to you all. So, we've been given the previews for Warhammer The Old World, what the box is going to contain, and we're going to talk about that, because that's pretty interesting to me. So, in these starter boxes, well, here's the thing. There are two different ways we can start the first video of the year. We can say what's good, we can say what's bad. I'm going to go with the what's good here, because I looked into it, and, well, I always like to, check my math, bring my tickets, as it were. And if we go back to White Dwarf 277, we get the original release of many of these Bretonnian and, Khemri units. Bretonnians was a different edition. And you can see here there's the Tomb King's Battalion. There's a Tomb King's Battalion, and there is a Tomb King's Army box. Now, believe it or not, the new box is actually much, much closer to the battalion than the army box. This army box had 6 chariots, it had the white metal Screaming Skull catapult, multiple characters and banners and lich, and a bunch of Usabti. Yeah, none of that's representative of the new box, but up here, we've got 3 chariots, a regiment of bowmen, a regiment of warriors, and a regiment of cavalry. And if we look at our preview, we have 2 regiments of spearmen or warriors, 2 regiments of archers, 2 regiments of cavalry, and we swapped out one of our 3 sets of chariots for this Lord on Dragon. So, okay, it's basically, apart from that swap out and the addition of the books and templates, it's essentially 2 of the old Tomb King's Battalion, almost to the model. So what did that cost? Well, it cost way back in the days of 2002, 2003. I think this was the start of 2003. This particular one here, this cost us, here we go, want to make sure I get this right, 50 British pounds, and 2 of that would be 100 British pounds. But the new box set is selling for, let me get this right, 175 pounds. Now, it does include a book, and you could argue whether 3 chariots is worth the same as the dragon character. And there's also a little on-foot character, but is it worth the £75 difference? And I'm actually going to go out on a limb here and say, yeah, Games Workshop got this one right. Because adjusted for inflation, the British pound, £50 back then, in 2003, is worth £97.49 today. So, it's pretty much, you are getting a discount over the 2003 prices ever so slightly. Now, yes, there is an argument to be made in here in that, well, these miniatures are 2003 era miniatures and you're being charged full price for them. There's been no effort made in sculpting them. Perhaps they could have used the old masters and made a new die. I doubt that. I think they've just pulled the old die out of storage. Because you're going to go to the expense of making a new die, you may as well just sculpt new miniatures, It's neither here nor there when it comes down to it. Is it worth it in that regard? Is it a blatant lazy cash grab? Well, you know what? I don't have the answer, but I will at least give them the credit. The company has not price gouged us and just gone, here's the same miniatures, but more expensive. Yes, I mean, we're price gouged in the fact that these sculpts have paid for themselves 100 times over by now. But you know what? That could be argued of any older sculpts. So very interesting to see that in this upcycling that's occurred, this set here, especially if you buy from a third-party retailer, and the same with the Bretonnian set, I wasn't able to find the exact White Dwarf they released in. I found, 215, White Dwarf 215 had a lot of articles on the matter. 215, by the way, is one of the best White Dwarf editions ever made. They talk about the sculpting of the Falcon Grav tank in here, the original 3-up size sculpt, how they translate it with pantograph into a mold. yeah, really interesting addition. That's the plastic mold from the early 2000s of the grav tank right there. So for those who are curious, it has a whole thing on jousting with Bretonnians, huge number of articles on, funny enough, Epic, which is itself only a month old currently, Legions Imperialis. So White Dwarf 215, if you can get hands on this PDF, I'm sure you'll find it. If you Google, White Dwarf 215 free PDF, you will find it. And right down the bottom here, we have the old mail order. For those who I know it's a little bit sidetracked from the main episode, but in the mail order, you see what you used to have to do is if you wanted something, you had to basically write it on an envelope with a cash order made out to the correct amount and then mail it to the UK and then hope that they took the money and provide you with the correct models when they mailed it back. Those were wild times. But yeah, a lot of these Bretonnian models, some of which carried over into the 6th edition game, but these are all 5th edition era Bretonnian miniatures, basically. I have fond memories of many of them. But yeah, so 215. Fantastic White Dwarf. But anyway, this one over here, 277. This is from the Lord of the Rings era of White Dwarfs, like when the films were releasing. So you had a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff in these. It usually was on every cover around Christmas time, New Year's, all that kind of thing. So yeah, Bretonnian's Army Box. I think they got it right. Now, other things to note about this release. Well, there's no artillery dice included. You have scatter dice included, but the artillery dice, your misfire, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, that was on those dice were very, very important for missile weapons in Warhammer Fantasy Battles, not included. So that's not ideal either. I like this approach of having whole armies as their own separate box with rules included. I've been preaching that they should have been doing this for about 8-10 years now. So, full credit to them. This is exactly the approach I think should have been taken for a long time. Where instead of people being told, well, to get into this game, you need to buy this starter box, and this starter box contains these specific 2 factions. It's like, well, what if I don't like those? As far as I'm concerned, as a person getting into the hobby, I'm wasting my money on miniatures I don't want. And they're like, well, no, don't do that. Don't worry about that. Instead, what you can do is buy the exact army you want, and you're going to get all the rules and stuff you need for that army. Fantastic, great. I'm all for that, and that's the way it should have been. Also interesting to see that, Ravening Hordes, Force of Fantasy, all these different books and such that are coming out with it. Usually those expansions come quite the way down the line, and Ravening Hordes was one of my favourite expansion books back in like the 6th edition, 5th edition Warhammer Fantasy era. So nice to see that making a resurgence, but it's like, get all the rules for all the factions out there now, and then worry about that later. So yeah, the characters, I like the Bretonnian Duke, Paladin, Lord, whatever on the Pegasus. Old school Pegasus Knights look a lot more bland in comparison to this new, more dynamic one. And I think this Lord is perfectly fine, acceptable character for Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I cannot, however, say the same for the Tomb King. If I scroll down to it here, the Bone Dragon monstrosity, wherever it might be. Oh, is it? Have they not got a picture of it, or have I scrolled past it in my haste? No, okay. Well, the picture of it is up here anyway. That thing is just ugly. That isn't straight out of Age of Sigmar. It doesn't suit the faction. The faction already had things like the Necrosphinx and the War Sphinx. But really, this is the head of your faction, Cetra the Imperishable. He needs a new sculpt. Put the time and the effort and the resources into redoing an awesome Cetra instead of a shitty Bone Dragon. That would have been a nice fix. Also interesting to see all these creatures are being brought back, such as the Ushabti, Carrion. I'm guessing the Carrion's now going to be, not Carrion, the Tomb Swarms. I'm guessing that they're all going to be in plastic now, the Tomb Swarms. The old ones were white metal. The Ushabti were in white metal. They'll be in resin now. Cetra will be heaps of resin bits and combination of plastics. I do not like the Necropolis Knights and Sepulchral Stalkers, never have. Thought they were hideous models back then, still think they're hideous models now that don't suit the faction. Opinions may vary. The Tomb Guard, this was from Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition, I'm pretty sure. Along with like the War Sphinx and Necrosphinx. Because before this, they were white metal. They were white metal, the Tomb Guard. These are plastics bought out for that edition. When it comes to Bretonia, we've got all our new characters and stuff, which they're fine, although all the used condoms hanging off this guy's lantern at the back's a bit concerning. The damsel, I don't know why she needed to be, like, Age of Sigma-fied. I mean, this is relatively soft as far as complaints could go. She doesn't need to be floating up in the air. We can tell. The one lady who is dressed like a medieval maiden is probably going to stand out regardless of her having an extra 3mm of base underneath her, lifting her up into the air. In a whole army of knights and warriors and men-at-arms, the one damsel probably going to stick out regardless. The old mounted Gayamen, these were white metal bodies on plastic horses, so I dare say resin bodies on plastic horses. The Battle Pilgrims and Grail Reliquary, these were all white metals as well, and we'll see how they go this edition, but if that's all resin, it's 12 metal Battle Pilgrims. Oh geez, so they're bringing back actual metals? Oh, I should have read this article more thoroughly, because, jeez, Rick, this is going to cost an arm and a leg. Even if it's just like inflation adjusted, like the prices are for the rest of it, that is still like, you're going to notice that. Because like the journal for the Tomb King's Khemri, that's £16, £175 for the Tomb King's big box set. The Knights of the Realm on foot, they're going to be £50. The Battle Standard on the Royal Pegasus, £40. Pegasus Knights, £37.50. So £37.50 sounds about right based off their old early 2000s prices, but that's 3 old models, 3 20-year-old models. You're paying, £13.50 per model. I don't know about that. They're okay looking. As for the Knights of the Realm, Grail Knights, all that kind of thing, I'm pretty sure these Grail Knights got a resculpt in 6th edition Warhammer Fantasy. I'm pretty sure those, the Knights Errant / Knights of the Realm, and the Grail, not Grail Knights, because that's what these are, the Questing Knights, all got a big update, because pretty much a faction-wide update in 6th edition Warhammer Fantasy for Bretonia, which pretty much culled off the entire old range. Personally, I wanted a bunch of the old Bretonian Foot Knights from that edition. I loved the 5th edition Foot Knights, never got a hold of any. I did have a couple of the Squires with the bows, their little bowl cuts, but on my list of things I would have liked. So there's a lot of white metal coming back, and that means a lot of white metal parts, and young players who want to get into this are going to have to grapple with the sheer pain that is white metal and plastic combined together, and the mold lines. And look, I like white metal as much as the next person, but I grew up with it, For those who are only used to plastic kits, it's going to be a hard learning curve. Going to like white metal Ushabti, prepare to just handle them and have them fall to fucking pieces on you, because that's what happened. So anyway, that's it for me. My dog is snoring beside me, having a New Year's Day nap. So I'm going to come back and revisit this topic, but really I just want to do this video to point out that, hey, these things are coming out and they seem to be priced at a pretty reasonable price point compared to what old Warhammer Fantasy was. Now, you can argue about how egregious the pricing is after 20-year-old sculpts and all that, as I said before, and you can argue about them being price gouged in the first place. That is true. But if you pick up any of these new kits at these prices from a third-party retailer, you'll actually be buying, for currency conversion purposes, cheaper than you would have bought them in 2003, and that is staggering to think about. So yeah, anyway, that's it for me. I'm back with the Outer Circle. I'll do more and proper videos on this topic, like some actual well thought out content, not just off the top of my head. But I want to give you something positive to start off the new year. And I think this fulfills that nicely. So anyway, that's it from me, back with the Outer Circle. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.